Good evening, darklings. It is I, Cadaver Kelly, a mere wretched tour guide to the Goth subculture. In this video, we will be exploring the dreaded ad hominem, one of the most commonly employed logical fallacies in debate within the Goth subculture. What is this elusive ad hominem of which I speak? Ad hominem is a tactic of avoidance used in debate wherein a subject attacks character or motives as a means to disarm one's opponent and discredit any points that opponent may have made. It's like the ultimate cheat code that defeats the final boss of open dialogue. This often takes the form of simple name-calling, and in the context of discourse among the Goth subculture, there are two different sides to the same tactic: poser and elitist. So is every last dreaded soul who utters the faint cry of poser or elitist employing the ad hominem fallacy? Not exactly. These are words that do have meaning and could be effective in proper context, but they become reduced to ad hominem when used as a device to avoid presenting an actual counterpoint. Let's explore further by examining the use of poser. Poser is the modern French iteration of the word poser. It has a few definitions, but the one which fits the context of this discussion is falsely presenting oneself as belonging to a particular group. So in the Goth subculture, this is used as a pejorative to imply that someone presenting themselves as a Goth is not, in fact, a Goth. A fake, or a phony if you will. The use of the French spelling of poser in the English-speaking Goth world is a tongue-in-cheek form of satire, where the spelling of the word is itself posing as being different from what it actually is. Ah, the delicious irony. That just seems like unnecessary name-calling. What are you even trying to achieve with that kind of attitude? Well, in order to determine an answer to that question, let's dive a little deeper into the use of this word in the Goth subculture. Although this term has likely been thrown around since Goth's early beginnings, it was at the height of its most frequent use in the 1990s club scene. In the early 1980s, the Goth subculture was a little looser, a little less insular, and less defined than in years to follow. But then, the mid-80s through the early 90s struck and brought with it a sea of satanic panic, with news stories about devil-worshipping cults sacrificing the blood of the innocent to the Antichrist.
Denver police have had a serious problem with teenagers and Satanism over the past 5 years.
Joining a satanic or occult group will, in time, lead into the no-turning backstage.
An increase in teenage homicides and suicides with ritualistic or satanic overtones.
The FBI's 1988 Uniform Crime Report indicates more than 18,000 murder investigations during that year, and 26% of those murders were listed as bizarre or ritualistic.
Church desecrations and burglaries, chalices stolen.
All of these acts are carried out in the name of Satan. Therefore, the participants have no remorse.
They use them to drink the blood of their sacrifices.
These highly destructive Satanists make families their primary targets.
Do you still believe in Satan?
Yeah, he can come into you and make you do wicked stuff.
The National Clearinghouse on Satanic Crime in America estimates 50% of the cases of missing children and bizarre murders may be linked directly to satanic and other occult organizations.
All dark alternatives, and especially goths, were painted by this aforementioned satanic brush of the fear-mongering news stories, and soon, goths became the target of sabotage. So the goth subculture became more protective of their community than ever, and less trusting of those they could not confirm to be one of their own. Thus, the word poser was thrown about like wildfire, both protecting the goth subculture from the outside world and hindering its growth in the process. This environment fostered a very intimidating barricade for interested beginners to break through. Feeling defeated, the frustrated baby bats armored up with their retort: elitist. Although this ad hominem equipped fresh faces with a defense to the poser ad hominem, fighting fire with fire is rarely an effective method for extinguishing flames. In order to further explore the negative consequences of this particular retort, let's examine what elitism means from a logical and academic standpoint. Elitism is exclusionary attitudes or behaviors that benefit only a few, putting those few beneficiaries in the top category of a hierarchical chain that could also be categorized as the elite. This can come in many forms like classism, ableism, and racism, all of which do come up even in the goth subculture. So elitist does have its proper place in discussion and can be used to effectively describe these problematic attitudes. The problem is when we overuse terms like elitist and just throw them out at the mere mention of anything that challenges our objectives, the word loses its power. I'm tired of these music elitists and their "you can't sit with us" attitude. You want the goth subculture to stay alive? You need to be open and welcoming to all. We're just trying to build a community. I'm not saying that music elitism doesn't exist. However, music elitism could only exist in a form of covert classism where one would be expected to have a level of knowledge and education inaccessible to the average person. This can occur in goth, but it's very rare for how often the word is thrown out. Knowing a few goth bands is not inaccessible to the average person in the modern day of information at our fingertips. An actual music elitist would sound like this. Oh really? You call yourself a Bauhaus fan? Can you list me every track off the Burning on the Inside album? Every one of Peter Murphy's solo albums? Every Tones on Tail track? Can you describe to me the difference in the bass lines between the Bella sessions and In the Flatfield? No? Poser. This attitude favors only an elite few who have the fortune of being educated, endowed with optimal memory, and a high level of free time dedicated to activities like exploring music discographies in great depth. This is certainly an unreasonable expectation that is only accessible to a very select few. However, as stated previously, this form of elitism is very rare and intentionally exclusionary. These types have been a largely dying breed since the late 1990s. In the era of modern social media, it is much more common for a goth to be called an elitist at the mere mention of goth music. I may not listen to goth music, but I've been a darkling for as long as I can remember, and goth is the best way I can describe that. I'm just trying to find a community of like-minded people. Then you're not actually a goth. Get lost, poser. Elitist bully. Ladies. Let's navigate this discussion a little more respectfully. Of course, everyone likes to feel that they are part of a community that shares their interests. But if you are joining a community that centers itself around a type of music you aren't interested in, then it isn't going to be a community of like-minded individuals. It's not a matter of you can't sit with us. We absolutely want you to sit with us and share the wonderful music and culture with you. But establishing yourself within a subculture does have some requirements. To demonstrate, let's explore what a subculture actually is. Merriam-Webster defines a subculture as an ethnic, regional, economic, or social group exhibiting characteristic patterns of behavior sufficient to distinguish it from others within an embracing culture or society. So if the goth community did not have at least some requirements, it wouldn't be a subculture, as there would be nothing setting it apart from the overall population as a whole. In order for a group to meet the designation of subculture, there needs to be cultural norms present that deviate from the larger culture to which it belongs. Simply deciding you want to be a part of any culture is not enough. You need to assimilate yourself, at least on a basic level. This is the nature of community and societies in general. The one consistent basis across the goth subculture since its inception has been the music. Of course, goth is not only about music. There is so much more that is involved in a subculture. Music just happens to be what the majority of goths consider the critical component. The great news is that with a music movement like goth that spans many decades, there's a large variety of sounds to choose from, and more likely than not, you're bound to find something you like. It should be an enjoyable experience that isn't about forcing yourself to like a certain band, but rather finding the ones that you do enjoy. Let's cut it out with all this goth points and gothier than thou crap. I don't see why everyone can't just get along and be friends. We can certainly still get along and make friends with others outside the goth subculture, that is a given. However, while everyone getting along sounds great in theory, everyone is entitled to their own differing opinions and has the right to disagree with you, especially if they are doing so in a constructive way. We as humans should be civil towards one another, but everyone should also have the personal liberty to pick and choose who they want in their lives and who they don't. When we are in the throes of adolescence and still in school, we count the endless days until we are no longer stuck with the same group of predetermined peers and can embrace the sweet freedom of adulthood to curate our own social circles with whomever we choose. Whether or not you enjoy goth music is none of our concern, but if you don't partake in the music on at least a basic level, you aren't going to be the target demographic for those of us who are passionate about the music and seeking out others who share that same passion. Communities need some sort of common ground. If that common ground is not established, there is no established community. Trying to silence those who are passionate about goth music with ad hominem terms like elitist, if left unchecked, can contribute to the erasure of the goth music scene. That just sounds dramatic. Who would have thought that goths could be dramatic? In all seriousness, this is not as far-fetched as you would think. This actually did start to happen with the goth scene during the rise of pop punk's largest period of commercial success in the early 2000s. It severely hurt the goth subculture's numbers. It's no surprise that my goth music library runs the thinnest in the 2000s out of all of the past 4 decades. Some public awareness and resources that accurately portray the goth subculture is vital to our growth. When awareness of the music dies, the goth subculture starts to go along with it. So for those of us who want the goth subculture to be around for years to come, there needs to be more of an awareness of goth's core, music. This month, I'm going to be making a donation to the National Association for Music Education, an American nonprofit dedicated to preserving and providing music education across schools on the local, state, and national level. Since 1907, the National Association for Music Education has worked to ensure that every student has access to a well-balanced, comprehensive, and high-quality program of music education taught by qualified teachers. I will leave the link on where you can donate to this nonprofit in the description of this video for any other American viewers who are interested. For my international viewers, I would search online to see if you have similar organizations that serve your region. If you have made it this far into the video, I applaud your perseverance. So before you employ the ad hominem fallacy, unless you are looking to waste your time on non-constructive discourse, remember to consider where the other side is coming from and approach your response with logic and respect. Until we meet again, thank you for watching and take care of yourselves.